10 craziest NBA fights. Let's get it.
Wow! Right in front of us. DC is just unloading on Williamson, and this is a mob scene here in Sacramento.
Number 10. Daryl Dawkins versus Maurice Lucas. During the 1977 finals, an accidental tangle-up escalated to property damage.
Gilliam inside. Dawkins just throws it down to the ground and jumps back up.
After Philadelphia 76ers powerhouse Daryl Dawkins tangled with Bob Goss of the Portland Trailblazers, Dawkins tried to hit the other player, only to hit his own teammate. Trailblazer Maurice Lucas then shoved Dawkins before the two squared up, and fans and police flooded the court.
And now, Daryl Dawkins and Maurice Lucas. Somebody do something. It's Dawkins and Lucas. Dawkins and Lucas.
Both players were ejected. Dawkins was so angry that he ripped a toilet from the wall of his own team's locker room.
They've got to get the fans off. That's the first thing they've got to do, is get the fans
crashing
off
out.
the floor.
The Sixers won this game, but lost the next four, leading to Portland's only championship to date. Some speculate that this particular fight helped motivate the Trailblazers to win the series. Number 9. Michael Jordan versus Reggie Miller. The legendary Michael Jordan was no stranger to aggressive gameplay, and this incident is a prime example. Indiana Pacers star Reggie Miller bumped into Jordan, and the two exchanged some pretty harsh words before things came to blows.
All right, okay, yeah. MJ is upset about it, and I can't blame him.
Jordan chased down Miller to grab, scratch, and punch his face.
And they both go after each other.
Michael wasn't done there. He got a shot.
Miller was ejected, but insanely enough, Jordan was not. In fact, he wasn't even given a foul.
Reggie Miller, he is ejected. Miller is ejected. And
Bob Hill just threw and broke his knee. He is gone. Bob Hill and the fans are starting to throw stuff on the floor.
After the game, however, Jordan was fined and was given a one-game suspension. As for Miller and the Pacers, they did not advance to the NBA Finals until after Jordan's second retirement.
Congratulations to the Indiana Pacers. Well deserved. The best team all year. They proved it during the regular season and during the playoffs in the Eastern Conference.
Number 8. Larry Bird versus Dr. J. During his career in the NBA, Larry Bird was known for trash talk, but he went a little too far when he elbowed the high-flying Dr. J, aka Julius Erving. Despite their off-the-court friendship, the two threw punches and grabbed each other's throats. Both teams' benches rushed to the court, and Dr. J's fellow Sixers held Bird as Irving punched the Celtic superstar. The fight resulted in over $30,000 in fines, with Irving and Bird both receiving fines of $7,500, the second highest fine in the league at the time.
This is a heated ball game, and it's in stages of a blowout. Tempers are bound to flare in an important ball game like this, and Bird still wants a piece of Jay.
Thankfully, after the fight, the two reconciled and are still friends to this day. Number 7. Marcus Camby versus Danny Ferry. Marcus Camby of the Knicks wasn't known as a confrontational player, but he was understandably ruffled when Spurs player Danny Ferry elbowed his chest and hit him in the face.
Camby took a shot.
After a brief discussion with the ref, Camby dove after Ferry to retaliate.
Camby still trying to get it. Ferry, that's a bad move.
Unfortunately, Camby accidentally hit his own coach Jeff Van Gundy when the coach attempted to intervene. The scuffle resulted in a 5-game suspension and $25,000 fine for Camby, a 1-game suspension and $7,500 fine for Ferry, and 15 stitches for Van Gundy.
There.
See Van Gundy saving him. Van Gundy sacrificing himself to try to save his player.
As you'll see in a moment, this wasn't the only time Jeff Van Gundy was caught in the crossfire of a fight in Madison Square Garden. Number 6. Alonzo Mourning versus Larry Johnson. At the end of a 1998 playoff game between the Miami Heat and the New York Knicks, former teammates Alonzo Mourning and Larry Johnson bumped into each other, and years of animosity bubbled up into flying fists.
And fists are flying at the other end. Larry Johnson is one of them. Here we go.
Other members of the Heat and Knicks got involved, but the craziest thing about this fight was Knicks coach Jeff Van Gundy grabbing Mourning's leg to try to de-escalate the altercation. Thankfully, to quote commentator Doc Rivers,
Fortunately for these guys, they are both awful fighters.
so no hits landed and no coaches were trampled during this scuffle. Both Johnson and Mourning received 2-game suspensions and missed the end of the series.
Way to ruin a good game.
Number 5, Charles Barkley versus Shaquille O'Neal. Nowadays, Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal are everyone's favorite frenemies on TNT's Inside the NBA, but these two weren't always so chummy.
See these two, man. Come on, man. Nobody laughing. Come on, man.
During a 1999 game, Shaq fouled Barkley, who retaliated by throwing the ball at O'Neal's head, and the two wound up wrestling to the ground. Both players were suspended. Barkley was fined $5,000, while Shaq was fined $10,000. Thankfully, after the incident, their mothers convinced the players to patch up things, and they made amends over a few terrible rounds of golf.
When I got to the locker room, my mother was on the phone and Charles' mother was on the phone. Charles' mom was like, "Don't you hit my boy." I was like, "Who is this?" She was like, "That's Charles' mom." I was like, "Oh, hello, ma'am. How you doing? Y'all don't need to be fighting. I just talked to Charles. He gonna meet you in the hallway. Y'all hug it out and y'all stop that."
However, this was not the only time Charles Barkley was involved in a fight on the court. Number 4, the Suns versus the Knicks.
Doc Rivers and a foul
The
on
whole
Rivers
team's fault.
for pushing Johnson.
Baseball
Says,
fault.
yes, and they're going
Shoulda.
Yes, that's Charles Barkley once again. The main instigators of this rule-changing
Dugout.
fight from 1993, however, were Kevin Johnson and Doc Rivers. Rivers committed an offensive foul on Johnson, and the two got heated, leading their
They
benches to
started
clear
getting
out.
down.
Thankfully, both teams cooled down, but not for long. Rivers and
Started
Johnson
throwing them
clashed
hands.
again, and a benched Greg Anthony decided to escalate matters by punching Johnson in the face.
Oh, look out. Here comes Rivers after Johnson. We have a free fall. Johnson blindsided Rivers. Rivers went
Went to the
down,
corner
and
and
this
dropped him
could
and
become
started
ugly.
The teams dogpiled each other, resulting in one of the biggest fights in NBA history, as well as suspensions for Johnson, Rivers, and Anthony.
And now, Johnson diving
Beating
on
his
Anthony.
ass.
Boy, this is one you will not see in the NBA. This is awful.
In fact, Anthony's involvement off the bench
So
led to
the
stricter
ratings
league-wide
went
rules
down.
regarding
They'll be
fighting,
fighting.
which are still in effect to this day.
Now it looks
Still
like they have
doing
settled
this.
matters, and that's the end of the half.
Number 3, the Bulls versus the Knicks. The Knicks have been involved in their fair share of historic on-court fights, and this incident was no exception. During the 1994 playoffs, Derek Harper of the Knicks and JoJo English of the Bulls scuffled at the three-point line right in front of the first row of fans.
Now we've got a play with Harper and English. Look out. Look now into the stand right in front. Look out. We've got everybody. We've got punches thrown. Ewing, Cartwright. It's right in front of us.
At the sound of the ref's whistle, both teams rushed to back up their teammates. The fight escalated and spilled into the stands.
And as he brings him over here and throws him on the floor, you can see what happens. It empties right over the top of the fans in rows 1 and 2.
This was far from the only time an altercation extended into the crowd, but it's not every night that the NBA commissioner is in attendance. David Stern had a front row seat to the action.
Here's the commissioner. Naturally, it happened right down below him, no more than 10 feet away, as it stumbled into the first and second rows.
Harper received a 2-game suspension, English received a 1-game suspension, and the league made stricter rules regarding fights. Number 2, the Knicks versus the Nuggets.
There it goes again. Look at this. What is he doing?
Man, there's just something about Madison Square Garden and fights, isn't there? This insane history-making melee from 2006 began at the end of the game, when Knicks player Marty Collins committed a flagrant foul against Denver Nuggets guard J.R. Smith.
Oh, that's a tough foul, Marty Collins. Careful. No. What's Robinson doing?
The Nuggets rushed to Smith's defense, resulting in a huge brawl between both teams that spilled into the stands. The Nuggets and the Knicks were fined $500,000 each, and 7 players, including the league's top scorer Carmelo Anthony, were suspended for a total of 47 games, making this the most penalized game in history at the time.
So there goes the Knicks, 5 on the floor.
I can honestly say, and I've been around the NBA since 1982, I have never seen 10 players kicked out of a game. And I don't know, Walt Frazier sitting right to my left. He may have, I don't know if we can get his attention. Dick Pavetta once again is going to come over and kind of explain this to us, but I've never seen 10 players kicked off.
Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few honorable, or in this case perhaps dishonorable, mentions. The Celtics versus the Rockets. 7'4" Ralph Sampson collided with 6'1" Jerry Sichting, who retaliated with a hit, and other players joined in.
Seasting and Sampson, and now Dennis Johnson, and a melee is broken out here. A melee is broken out, the benches have emptied, and they have brought police onto the floor.
Robert Parrish versus Bill Laimbeer. Parrish punched known instigator Laimbeer and didn't even get a foul called on him.
It doesn't fall. The tip by Parrish. He can't get it to fall, and Parrish takes Laimbeer to the ground with a right forearm.
The security guards are on the floor right now, too.
Pistons versus 76ers. Is anyone surprised that Bill Laimbeer was involved in this scuffle?
Nobody even tried to get the get back. Like, what the fuck? He got knocked out.
He and Laimbeer start shoving each other. And now Barkley gets into it, and he and Laimbeer. And now there are some punches thrown. Now we got a little, not a little melee, a big melee, and there were punches thrown.
Chris Paul versus Rajon Rondo. Fouls and shoves led to Paul and Rondo throwing punches and getting suspended.
Now Paul, punches are thrown. Paul and Rondo throwing punches. Ingram comes in, he's throwing punches.
Kobe Bryant versus Chris Childs. Childs shoved Kobe for trash talking, leading to a brawl. They were fined and suspended.
Oh, Kobe. And now a fight breaks out between Kobe Bryant and Chris Childs. Chris
Nah, you really saw Kobe.
And Kobe is hot. It takes 2 officials to restrain him.
Number 1. Pistons versus Pacers versus fans, also known as the Malice at the Palace.
This is a disgrace.
It's pretty ironic that a man who later changed his name to Meta World Peace was at the center of the worst fight in NBA history.
And Wallace is fouled, and Wallace did. Oh, Wallace right at our chest. This has potential to be serious if they don't get between.
Known at the time as Ron Artest, he committed a foul on Pistons player Ben Wallace, who then shoved Artest. The two got physical, and a fan added to the incident by throwing a Diet Coke in their direction, prompting Artest to climb into the stands.
Now Artest has jumped over the scorer's table and is trying to get down to the bench. Artest is in the stands.
The arena exploded into chaos between players, fans, and security. Even after the fighting stopped and players headed to the locker room, fans continued to throw drinks. Artest received a 73-game suspension, the longest in league history. 73 additional game suspensions were handed out, players and fans received assault charges, and NBA rules regarding security and alcohol sales at games were changed.
What a disgraceful showing from the Pistons fans here.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from Watch Mojo.
Wow.
And be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.
What the fuck? So